What's up, y'all? This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Thank you guys for chilling out and hanging out with us. You know that I find the best human beings on the planet to come on here to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. I am so stoked. I've been reading the bio on this gentleman, and he is somebody I know you are going to love. His name is Vince, and he has over 12 years of experience in the mental health. He also is a life coach, a certified mindset coach, and he's even a former firefighter and personal trainer because why not, right? So he combines cognitive behavioral therapy and positive psychology with high levels of accountability and mindfulness to help you find balance with work and family and your personal desires. And I freaking love that. So if you guys are here and you're feeling stuck and you don't know where to choose and what's going on in life, let's dive into this conversation because I know this is going to be enlightening and transformative. And I am so glad he's here. What's up, Vince? How you doing?
Hey, Nina, I am doing great. What a good intro. Now I have a lot to live up to.
I know I come at it with a lot of energy, but you know what? I get so stoked because when I find like really good people, really good humans that are out there just doing some good stuff to help us like really think about life a little bit differently, right? Because as you
Mhm.
know, I mean, we've been just hit with a bunch of shenanigans for like the last few years.
Yeah.
And mental health is a big issue. It's become a really big issue in this last couple of years. So I really want to get to know you a little bit better, though. So let's dive into that. My first question is always, who are you? I know that's a little question. So, who are you, Vin? Who are you?
Well, I've been called a lot of things in life. And I've had a lot of identities, a lot of different roles. My favorite thing that I've ever been called, though, is a guy with an opinion. And I think that
Ah,
that is my favorite title, honestly. That was a little time when I was in the fire department and we were standing there in formation, and the guy next to me, it's kind of like in the military, right? They ask, like, what'd you do before this? Because
mhm.
you're transitioning out of somewhat civilian life to become a first responder. So he's like,
Right,
what'd you do
right.
before this? I was like, well, I was a therapist. I've been a practicing therapist for about 10 years before I got in here. He's like, huh, no offense. I don't really get your profession, but aren't you just a guy with an opinion? I was like, yeah, I guess I kind of
I love that. What an easy way to like sum up something, too.
am.
So,
It's been my favorite way to describe myself.
I love that though, right? So you got into firefighting like after that career, then I didn't realize that. So tell me what got you going into even getting into therapy? What was that about?
So my childhood dream was to be a therapist and a firefighter, and not a
Really?
yeah, not
Okay.
a therapist for firefighters like people used to think, but a therapist and a firefighter and do both.
That's so
And
cool.
it was because my dad was a psychotherapist. He still actually is to this day. He still has his own private practice and just sees patients by himself. And then I think every guy at some point in their life, or when they're kids, right, when they're young boys, wants to do something heroic.
Yeah.
I think it's just intrinsically within us, right? So when you ask a boy, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's something exciting. It's like, I want to be in the military, or I want to be a
Yeah.
firefighter, or I want to be a cop, or I want to go to space. And it's always something about exploring and danger and excitement. So I think for me, my choice was being a firefighter. So
How
that was
how cool is that though that you got to do both?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was interesting, right? I I became this a therapist. I was working in mental health since I was 18, and the fire department, at least in New York, it's very competitive, and there's over 80,000 applicants.
Oh wow.
However, only about 5,000 people every 4 years get in.
Wow.
So, if you're not in the top 5,000, you're most likely not going to get called to become a firefighter. Now, New York has very strict standards. You age out by the time you're 29. You're no longer
Mm,
eligible to become a firefighter if you're not already in for consideration. And they only give the test every 4 years. So, from the time you're 18 until about 29, you only have two
two
opportunities.
times, yeah.
And it's
Wow.
not about passing, because the first time I took the test, I think I got a 93, and I was number 18,000 on the list.
Wow.
And then the second time I took the test 4 years later, I got 103, and I was number 1217 on the list.
Oh wow.
So it's extremely competitive. You have to be top in your scoring to even get the opportunity. And then you go through all this different training. And then you're a firefighter. So I chose to transition at 28 from being a therapist to being a firefighter. And then a year later, I got into coaching and I resigned from the fire department to do entrepreneurship full time. So I had 3 careers in 3 years.
Yeah, that's really cool though. But what's interesting is how long you waited to get into the fire department and then you left a year later. So
Right.
is it because it's strenuous? Is it because of that? Or was it just I accomplished my goal and I want to go to another goal?
Sometimes you get into something and then that's how you realize it isn't for you.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind the workload of it. I didn't mind the long nights and long days or whatever I was doing in there. I actually still to this day think is probably the best, coolest, and most exciting experience I will ever have in my life because I don't think
Mhm.
anything beats that. However, there was a few moments that really set me up to know that my heart just wasn't in it. Where there were times where now while I was in the fire department, I was building my coaching business on the side.
Okay. Okay.
So there were constant conflicts because when you're new in the fire department, you're a probie and you are mostly required to come in, especially if guys need off. Like you're expected to step up. It's got that
Mhm.
brotherhood mentality. And I found myself having to choose between stepping up as a firefighter or canceling on clients. And when I realized I really didn't want to cancel on clients, and I was looking forward more to the days where I was doing coaching than the days I was
Mhm.
going to the firehouse, is when
Mhm.
I had to come to this conclusion that I'm actually not doing right by anybody. I'm not doing right by my clients because sometimes I have to cancel on them last minute to go to the firehouse. I'm not doing right by the firehouse because I'd rather meet with my clients. And so I'm not jumping at the opportunities to go in like I should be
Right.
to really get into the brotherhood, right? And then I had to think about, well, what is really the thing that I want to be committed to? Because I could do both, but I know that my heart isn't in both equally.
Mhm.
So once I kind of got to that truth of there was this one day, and I'll never forget it. The guys were like texting me at like 10 or 11 p.m. to come into work at 7 in the morning for a tour because one of the other guys wasn't going to be able to make it. However, I also already had like 7 clients booked for that day.
Mm.
And all I thought about was like, I'm not canceling on my clients. It's just not happening. I don't care what's going on. Like, I'm dedicated to these people. They set the time in advance. I'm not going to keep canceling on them last minute. It's just
Mhm.
not happening.
Mhm.
And in that moment, I was like, I did just make my decision. So now that I know where my heart is, I have to do the harder thing, which is leave safety, security, pension benefits, salary all
Right.
behind to
Right.
pursue entrepreneurship full time.
Right. And that's real, right? I mean, I went through that in May. I was struggling with the same thing. And that's a really hard decision to make. That's a
Yeah.
hard decision to make, especially when you know that that is where your pension is, your money is, your you know what I'm saying? Like the clients you got to kind of keep going after and getting
Yeah.
where here you got that steady paycheck, right? So any regrets?
No, I don't believe that I have any regrets about it.
Mhm.
I do reminisce about being a firefighter sometimes. I think it was really, like I said, it was really exciting. It was very
Yeah.
cool. Um, but I do feel that I definitely made the best decision for me. And it was hard, to your point. So you had to print out a letter of resignation and hand it in. And I probably printed that letter 5 different times because I had to
Yeah, I
keep
bet.
changing the dates because I would like print it out and I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna do it. And then I'd pace around my apartment for a full day. And then I'd leave it on the desk and then I'd go to the firehouse and then I'd come home and I would be like, all right, I'm gonna do it like the next tour. And then I have to
Right.
print out. So I think that went on for about 2.5 weeks before I
That
finally had the courage to give in that piece of paper. And this is a little funny story is when I went in, so people don't resign from the fire department. Like,
no.
it's extremely rare. The only people that resign are the people that are about to be fired, and even it's very hard to even get to that point, right?
Right, right.
So when I walked in and I handed the letter of resignation to the chief, because there was a chief sitting in our house, and I handed him the letter of resignation. I said, "Hey, chief, I'm resigning." And he just looks at me and he takes the paper. He's like, "Are you kidding?" I'm like, no, sir, that's a real letter of resignation. I'm not joking. He's like, all right, listen, I got to be honest. I don't even know what to do with this. I've never seen one of these in my 30 years here. Like nobody
Oh
resigned.
my
He's like,
God.
are people like here ruining your life? I was like, no, chief. He's like, are guys giving you a hard time? I'm like, no, chief. He's like, what's going on? Is like, is somebody doing something to you in the fire
Right,
department? Are they
right,
blackmailing you out? I'm like, chief, no. Like,
right.
I'm gonna pursue something else. And he goes, all right, listen, I got to call somebody because I don't know what to do with this thing. I've never seen one.
Oh,
So
that's so
he winds up
funny.
dialing like 4 or 5 other chiefs.
Who
And,
don't know either?
and yeah, he finally, like the fifth chief was like, oh, you got to do that. And he's like, okay, we finally figured it out. It took him calling like 4 or 5 other
Oh
chiefs.
my
And
gosh.
it's just because like nobody has ever had to deal with someone resigning, right? Like less than 1% of people resign from New York FDNY. It just
Right,
doesn't
right,
happen.
right. Right.
So
Right.
it was interesting.
That is really interesting. And I wonder, did that kind of give you pause? Did you pause for a second when they were like nobody ever resigns and stuff? Did you kind of like go, maybe I'm not doing the right thing? Or did you go there or no?
I didn't. I could say before I resigned, I thought that
Yeah.
because one of the things that I've come to learn about people is that a lot of the times they do have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
However, the best interest at heart comes for their belief system.
Hmm. Hmm.
So people, when I said, "Hey, I'm going to resign from the fire department," I barely told anyone because I didn't want anyone to sway me. But the few people I did tell, I'd say probably half of them was like, "Are you crazy? Like, what
Hmm.
do you mean? Are you dumb? Like, you're gonna give up all of that? You work so hard for this. You're gonna throw away all your training. You're gonna regret this, or stay a little bit longer, just build your business on the side, or better yet, stay forever and just do your business on the side because
Right.
right? And so you get all of that, and I understand everybody's
Yeah.
operating out of a fear-based perspective because they're
Right.
looking out for me. It's like, think about your future, your
Hmm.
security, the pension, the benefits, the this, the that. Think about these things. They're so important. But you have to really pause and sit with yourself and ask, are those things important to me?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I was in that space where I had already accepted and acknowledged they were not important to me. I don't
Right.
care about those things. Funny enough, I never even bothered to invest in my pension because I was like, I don't even care about it. I think it's bullshit anyway. And I'd
Right.
rather do my
Right.
own investing.
Right.
So when you get to that space, at least within yourself, it really prompts you to take a different kind of action. And
Hmm.
when I
Hmm.
finally was ready to hand in that letter of resignation, it was more so the excitement mixed with the fear of, oh my God, I'm about to start life on my terms, as
Right.
opposed to, oh my God, I'm making the wrong decision.
Right, right. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because I think that as humans, we go through all of these like these this fork in the road, right? And a lot of times I push my clients because sometimes they think they're on the wrong track if they feel uninspired, right? And a
Mm,
lot of times we're uninspired because we haven't hit a goal,
yeah,
right? So what happens is we put this goal out there, we go for it, we didn't hit it. So now we're like, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. I'll try something else. And I always go, wait a second, pause. This is the goal you had. Did you reach it? No. Well, let's try reaching that first. And if you reach that goal and then you're uninspired, okay. But
yeah.
sometimes we become uninspired because we are not reaching a goal, because we feel like, but you reached the goal. You actually applied twice, you got in, right? So you reached the goal. So what shifted you though? Why coaching? Like, it was because it was part of like what you were doing before and it just felt like an easy, not an easy, but natural. Did it feel like a natural transition? What was that about?
Well, I've always loved helping people. I've had a lot of my own mental issues to overcome, and I could safely say I have overcome them. And through working as a therapist for over 10 years in every setting you can imagine, I started actually feeling like therapy isn't really helping people. And I don't know about you or your listeners, but maybe some people that are listening could agree. Maybe they're saying, hey, I have been in therapy for 5 years or 10 years. I didn't really feel like it
Right.
helped me. I mean, even for me, I saw a therapist that didn't help me at all, honestly. Like the
Hmm.
guy, very nice guy. completely useless as a therapist. Just could
Right.
not help me, didn't know what to do. And I started feeling like that's a big portion of the therapy system. And it's not to say that I want to sit here and badmouth therapists. I think that there is great use case for therapy. In fact, I still implement a lot of it into what I do today as a coach.
Right.
However, I was thinking there has to be a better way.
Mm-hmm.
Like there has to be more than just what I was taught in school and sitting in an office once a week for years and not really seeing much change, if any at all. And so I wound up stumbling upon Tony Robbins, and I really understood what he does and how he does it because of
Mm-hmm.
my clinical background. Because people don't really realize Tony Robbins calls himself a life coach because he can't legally call himself a therapist, but
Right.
he is probably the world's best therapist,
Mm-hmm.
realistically. And so I said, okay, well, if this guy could take people that are struggling for 15 to 20 years and help them in 15 to 20 minutes, he's learned something I have no idea about. That's where I'm going to go. So I got
Good.
my coaching cert under Tony Robbins training. And then I started creating a hybrid, mixing my therapy approach with his coaching approach and creating this more holistic form, providing rapid, transformational results for people. And it started really just becoming this thing I was excited about. And then it became even more purpose driven because I said, I see better I see better results in my clients now as a coach than I did as a therapist. And the biggest
Mm-hmm.
difference now is I invested a lot heavier in my personal education around how to be a coach, how to challenge people, how to start learning NLP and the subconscious mind and all these things that you don't learn in college, which was
Right.
interesting. So now it's like, okay, well, I want to bring this new methodology that I'm working on to the world because I believe the world needs a better way of approaching, looking at, and utilizing mental health practices to help people truly transform in their lives.
So good. So good. I had spoken to a therapist as well. She was like a head of a big, therapy department, and she had been doing it for like 20 something years. She felt the same exact way as you.
Yeah.
And she said she was talking to a colleague, and the colleague had, was talking about how he had like clients that were coming to him for 20 years. And she said, you should be ashamed of yourself. And he's like, excuse me? Because to him, it felt like that is what I'm supposed to do. Keep getting money every week for these people to keep coming in for 20 years. And she said,
Yep.
you should be ashamed of yourself because they should have such transformation. They don't need you anymore. And if they're coming back for 20 years, you're not doing a good job. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, whoa, you said that? She's like, heck yeah, I said that. I was done. But she did
Mhm.
the same thing you did. She went back, she got her coaching degree, all that. And she's like, I just help people better now because
Yeah.
instead of like just talking about what you've been through, we are moving forward. And
Yep.
I really love that. So tell me a little bit about your methodology, what you're doing with clients. I want to know more about that.
Sure. Well, and it's funny to your point, before I go into the methodology, I want to give that one woman praise. I love it. I
Yeah.
am constantly at battle with therapists and coaches because as you might be able to tell, much like her, I have a very strong stance on this.
Mm-hmm.
So I will
Mm-hmm.
call out coaches who will be like, "Oh, well, sometimes the process, what we're taught in like ICF is just sit with a client if they're not making progress." I'm like, "No, I'm
Right.
like, don't you dare just sit with that client if they're not making progress. Tell that client, be straight up and honest and say, I'm sorry, I do not have the skill set, the tool set, or the capacity to help you in this moment, and you need someone else. We have reached the end of our time
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And they'll fight me on that. They're like, well, that's ICF. I don't care what ICF says. ICF's
Yeah.
wrong.
I
I
don't
don't,
either.
like
So
I,
funny.
I didn't get certified by ICF, and I'm probably a
Yeah.
better coach than most of them anyway, right? So it's not about like your certification and what you think, but
Right. Right.
it's about looking at how can you really help people.
Yeah.
Because if you're just following what you're told in a book, like I did when I was a therapist who went through college, probably you're not getting great results with your people
Mm-hmm.
if you're a
Mm-hmm.
therapist or a coach or whoever you are. And so it's really, you have to seek out better ways to help people.
Yeah.
And so transitioning into what my methodology is, it's very I'd say it's very versatile. Like people ask me if I have a program, I don't. The biggest thing that I do is I will have a client come in, and this is the only cookie cutter thing I do is I've created an onboarding assessment. From my time as a therapist, I used to do these things called psychosocial assessments, which were basically extremely in-depth onboarding questionnaires where I would go through each phase of this person's life. I would go through early childhood, teen years, and then wherever they're at, let's just say they're 50, then I have to go through early adulthood, middle adulthood, late adulthood, right? Or
Mm-hmm,
if they're in their
mm-hmm.
20s, we stop at early adulthood, etc. So, though I felt like most of the information I was getting at many points was useless, but I had to do it to satisfy the insurance companies,
Right.
right? I saw that there was a lot of great stuff in there because as you prompt people to go through these uh, pivotal moments and transitional periods in their life, you start getting pieces of information
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
creates a map that you didn't have before to understand why they are the way they are currently. And that is
That's awesome.
paramount, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's the first part of the homework. The second part is a comprehensive assessment of who you currently are and how you currently view life. So again, it goes back to me understanding everything about your belief systems, your perspective, how you view things, and most importantly, how you view yourself. And then the last piece of my onboarding homework is we do this full assessment of where you would like to go. Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you want to grow? What do you see as your vision for your life, your business, whatever it could be? And so, in that comprehensive homework, that's what every client has to do to work with me. But from there, we show up. It's how
Mm-hmm.
do you want me to serve you today? What's on your mind? Or better yet, did I give you homework? Let's revisit that. Or did we have something that we didn't get to finish, etc. So I keep my services dependent on who you need me to be in that day. Like, do you need the therapist today? Do you need the coach today? Do you need the mentor today? Because I think mentoring is also a big part of
Yeah.
this, sharing your
Yeah.
own experiences. And
Agree.
so I just look to see which hat should I wear that's going to give you the best day. And probably the biggest way I've been able to kind of detach from having a specific thing I have to teach or a specific course or methodology, so to speak, is the understanding that I don't create change within people. More so, I facilitate a space for change to occur.
Right,
And
right,
then
right.
what you do in that space is up to you. But the only way I could truly create that space is by not having an agenda for you, but more so seeing what you need in that moment and showing up as that.
Hey there, my amazing community of straight talkers. I wanted to introduce you to a transformative life coaching program that I have made exclusively for women. Now, our transformational coaching will guide you, we will help you, we will uncover your passion, your goals, and will develop your roadmap to success. Visit me at neenaperez.com and you can join an amazing community of women that are on the same trajectory as you, because I want you to create that life and business you deserve and transcend that shame and unwanted behaviors. So don't wait any longer. Visit neenaperez.com and let's embark on this journey together. Now back to the show. Okay. Okay. So when you're helping people, you're not like, "Oh, I am going to help you build out this program." What you're saying is, "I'm going to help you build out you. You're going to have some personal development happening here." That's what it sounds like, right? I have my master certification as well in NLP, and when I first started, that's exactly how my methodology was as well, because it's really powerful, isn't it? So, how did you find the Tony Robbins coaching? How did you find that? Did you feel like that empowered you?
I felt like, well, yeah. You had me stumble on my words there. Because the biggest truth is I quit traditional therapy because of Tony Robbins.
Okay.
That's
All
how
right.
empowered I felt when I saw what he was doing. I said,
Mhm. Mhm.
this is kind of like Star Wars. I was like, this is the way.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And I
No,
went
he's
into that.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's I mean, he's in a league of his own. He's just in a league of his own, right? He's a very powerful human, a very powerful mentor, and he also seems like he cares a lot too, which is really, I don't know him personally. I just see him and watch him, and I've read his books and stuff like that. So I love what you're doing. So your approach is really come to me, let's figure this out together. I'm going to give you the space for you to grow. And so is your time and space like for them to be with you for a certain amount of time? Are these one-offs? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't believe in one-offs.
Me either.
I'm not in the space of just doing a like, hey, let's figure it out in one session and then you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
I do have people lock into a 3, 6, or 12-month commitment. We typically meet twice per month for an hour and 15 minutes as our structured sessions. And then every client that I have, it has 24/7 access to me. They can text me anytime they need. They can request additional phone calls for check-ins or whatever they need to discuss. And, it's really important, especially as a firefighter. I learned the best way to help somebody with a fire is to show up with
Right.
the hose, put out the fire. So if you're dealing with something and it's like, I don't have my session with Vin for 2 weeks, I guess I'll just let my building burn down. And then in 2 weeks,
Right.
I'm going to show up when it's smoke and ash. And I'm going to have my fire hose and you'll be like, nah, it's fine now. I mean, it's
Right.
building's done. Don't
Right.
worry about it. So,
That's a great analogy. You can use that too, right? Being a firefighter, like that's a
yeah,
really, really great analogy. So, okay, so they have access to you 24/7. You meet with them twice a week. I mean, sorry,
twice a month.
twice a month, twice
Yep.
a month. And I agree too. The one-offs, and I think all of you who are listening need to hear this too, because I think as leaders and entrepreneurs and CEOs and all that, because that's the people who listen to my podcast, sometimes we think, oh, we just need a one and done and we're quick, we're moving on. And what they don't realize is this is not a one and done. It didn't take you a one and done to get into the space that you're in. It's
Right.
not going to take you a one and done to get out of it. And so I'm glad you said that, Vince, because I think that's one of the most important things is for you to be clear about that, right? That this is not just get on a phone call with me. I'm going to help you with this mental health issue you have today, and tomorrow you're good, right? So
Right.
do you have like a story we can hear of something that you've seen that impressed you with one of your clients, like a transformation from beginning to when you finished working with them? I'd love to hear a story.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because sometimes to the point of, even though I don't do one and dones, I do let people modify their packages. When clients get to a space that they no longer really need me, it's funny because sometimes they still want that
Yeah.
accountability and they still want somebody in their corner. And I don't discount that. I don't look at it like, oh no, like you have to be without me. Because I did help that person. I know that they've transformed and I trust
Right.
them to be on their own, but I also know they like to have space where at least somebody is there, like for them, where they could just be unjudged and unapologetic.
Right.
So
Right.
I'll say, yeah, if you want, we could still work together in a capacity of like once a month. And a lot of my really great clients who have been able to transition out of their problems have stopped seeing me as frequently, and they'll do once a month or once every 2 months. And again, that's after the work though. So I want to just let people know, right? It's not that you can't get to the space where you could just have a one and done to some degree, right? Like, because that's still not a one and done. It's a continuation of their progress. But you have to be willing to put in the work. The reason I do 3, 6,
Yeah.
and 12-month
Yeah.
commitments is because I want to know that you want to take this process seriously, that you want to actually resolve your issue instead of putting a bandage on it and then seeing me in 2 months. I don't care about that. You could go to a therapist, pay them $15 copay, and you could do that with them. You don't do that with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
set a very high standard for the clients and the people I'm going to work
Mm-hmm.
with. To
Mm-hmm.
that point, I like working with entrepreneurs, high performers, etc., because they're people who already know how to take action, and they're
Right.
usually just missing a skill set, a tool set, a mindset, or something that can transform their life. So
Right.
one of my favorite stories of one of my best clients is, to the typical story. He was in therapy for about 15 years, didn't really get any great results, had some really bad therapists, according to him. I didn't say anything, but had some really bad therapists in therapy, 15 years on medication for anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. So he was trying to really manage all these things. And I remember when I first started working with him, the panic attacks were pretty interesting. He would get very
Mm-hmm.
shaky. He would like be almost unresponsive to some degree. There was a lot of stuff going on within him.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what I teach, so even though I don't have a specific methodology, I have things I know that work, right? If that makes sense.
Right.
And a lot of the things I teach is around aspects of self mastery, how you can work on controlling any and all situations in life by finding the little things you could tug at that can pull the string of control completely. So as we had worked together for about the first 6 months, he started really shifting his perspective. And all of the praise for this man's change, by the way, is on him because
Mm-hmm.
he's an action taker. If I told him to do something, he wouldn't be like, okay, maybe, and then show up to next session and not have it done. He would get it done. Then he'd text me, be like, hey, I just did it. And we would have a little dialogue about that. And then I'd give him tweaks to keep doing until we met next. Right. And so in the first 6 months, he had a very big perspective change. We also started doing a lot of work on his identity. We started doing some powerful shifts, like looking at his empowering persona. I'm sure you know some of these because you know NLP, right? So identity shifts, empowering persona, going into situations that brought him into a space of an emotion he wanted to feel as opposed to what he was stuck in. And so through doing a lot of these shifts, we also were able to create a new reality for him. After a year, the great news was that he finally came off all of his medications. He didn't need them anymore. He was rarely having panic attacks. And if he did start to get panic, and if it did start to basically, let's say, pulsate through his body, he was one, aware that it was happening, and two, he was able to stop it from going too far. So
That's
this man
fantastic.
in
Wow.
right in 1 year, we were able to accomplish more than he was able to do in 15 years of traditional therapy. And again, I'm not taking the praise for that. He took action. He was just missing skill set, tool set, mindset. And I
Yep.
provided those things to him, and he took them and he ran. And I am so proud of him. And every time anyone asks me, like, what's your favorite success story with a client? He's the one I go to because it's truly, it's very personal to me to some degree, because when I was younger, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, panic disorder. My therapist wanted me on medication. I refused. I was never going to go on medication, but I also knew that there had to be a way to overcome it. I just didn't know how, and my
How?
therapist
Right.
wasn't helping me either.
Right.
So
Right.
when he came to me as a client, it was almost personal. I was like, I'm gonna help this man, and he's
Right.
gonna get rid of this crap just like I did, because I'm not gonna let some therapist or anyone sit here and label him and tell him how he has to live. You are gonna ditch your diagnosis. We are gonna let you live label free, and we're getting rid of all this crap. And
Right.
I like, that's my commitment to you. And
Right.
he was ecstatic about it. He did it, and he reaped the results of it.
It's so good, right? Isn't that good? It's so good. I love when we can cause transformation. And most of us who get into coaching is because we have been through something and we want to so desperately get somebody through their something,
Yeah,
right? That's
yeah.
so freaking cool. I'm really glad that you did that. I'm glad that you're in this space too. So I know that I'm running a little over time because I really like talking to you. So before I let you go though, I do want the people who are listening who are really jiving with you right now. You have a great personality. You know what you're doing. And plus, I love the aspect of your past, like everything you can bring into coaching, which is really important. It really, really is, because you got to know the human in front of you, right?
Yeah.
So, how do people work with you? How do they get in contact with you? Like all that stuff. And if they want to work with you, Vin.
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways, right? You can email me at vincent@vincentinfante.life. It's a pretty direct uh, form of communication. You can check out my website. Oh, I'd love for people, even if they don't want to work with me,
Mhm.
I would love for people to check out the free resources I have. I have this
Okay.
one thing I have. It's called a mission board. It's better than a vision board for two reasons. One, because I made it. And number two, and number
And he's
two,
modest, y'all. He's modest.
the most humble. Bet on that. No, but
So funny.
it's really great, and it's something I spent a lot of time looking at, because I realized a lot of vision boards are just. Listen, I like the woo woo stuff. I really do. I'm into the mystical, spiritual things. Like, you could sit here and talk to me about past lives and stuff, and I will be like focused, right?
Right.
However, I think a lot of vision boards are just kind of feel good bullshit.
Yeah.
And if you could tell, or any one of the listeners could tell, I'm a little bit of a no nonsense guy. I like to
Yeah.
have fun, but I also can cut to the real stuff pretty quick, right?
Yep.
So when I created this mission board, I said, how can I take a vision board? Because I see the validity and I know the power of visualization, but how can I make it more intentional, more purposeful, and better? And so that's what I set out to do by creating this mission board. It really teaches you how to be extremely intentional with creating your life. So there's that. I have a free newsletter I release on the 1st and the 15th of the month. I don't sell anything in there, just pure personal development. I do a blog once a month. That's all business related. So there's plenty of free resources. And then connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. They're
Do you have a
both,
podcast?
I'm starting one, but I don't have it
Okay.
yet.
I don't know. For
Yeah,
some reason, I feel like you need to have one. Like you need to have a podcast. So
I'm working on it.
for whatever that's worth, get your behind out there and get yourself a podcast. Because
I'm currently
honestly,
working on a book.
yeah, good, good. Book too. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
well,
All
I'm
right, so
working on that.
if you like my straight talk and you like being on here, when you get that book going, reach out to me. I'd love to have you back on and talk about it.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
All right.
I'm only 20 pages in, but it's a start, right? I've been doing it. I've been doing it listen, I literally, so this is funny, right? I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she was like, if you're really going to continue getting into the speaker world, which is currently my big focus of speaking on more stages, podcasts, wherever I could get my message out. She said, you need a book. I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, I've known this for years. She's like, well, why aren't you doing it? I'm like, I don't know. You know what? I'm going to start writing it every single day. And that was 3 days ago. So I'm
there you go. There you go.
3 days into writing my book, but I'm 20 pages in, and I'm putting it out here right now to affirm my book is being written, and I'm committed to it. Now you and your listeners are going to either think my book is going to be done soon, or you're going to think I'm full of shit. I'd rather you guys think my book is going to be done soon.
Well, I just invited you back, so it better be done soon, right?
It will.
I would love to have you back on. No, a book is important only because I think it's a good way to reach people in different mediums, right? So you're already doing a podcast visually and audible. You're thinking about doing a podcast yourself, which is another audible. But what about people who like to read, right? So it's a great way to just reach them in a different medium. So good. You're welcomed back if you want to come and talk to my straight talkers.
Oh, I will definitely be back. And
okay, good.
In the meanwhile, I forgot to mention my socials. In the meanwhile, check me out, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's at Vin Infante. I just keep it short. You don't have to do the full name. You're not my mom, and I'm not in trouble. So just call me Vin.
Okay, you got it. Oh, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is fun. Guys, told you, right? Best humans on the planet. I don't play any games when I bring good people on. So make sure that you follow Vin. He already gave you all of his socials, but I'm going to make sure to link everything below because he has a book coming out, y'all. We're going to hold him to it. He has a book coming out. So we're going to make sure we have him back too to talk to you about that because I'm sure it's going to be a phenomenal book. I really like this guy. I like what he stands for. I like who he is. I like his vibe. So go ahead and, what is that? Take the fire out of your building before the building burns down and reach out to Vince. All right, guys. I love you so much. This is Neena Perez. Straight talk, no sugar added. Until next time.